Welcome. It's Facts You Don't Know. If it's your first time here and you want to find out new facts that will definitely make you smarter and more, well, and first make sure to subscribe and activate the notification bell so you don't miss anything.
God not only counts every good deed a person does, He multiplies it and rewards them, and worshipers will be reminded today. Today's sermon highlights the benefits of performing acts of goodness in this life, and how they're generously rewarded by God. Life goes round and round. Solidarity with people is a value which should always be implemented already. You don't know when you can need help. You too, today we bring a story that surely will reflect this in the story. Life is changeable, and you must always be responsive and kind with people around you, because you never know when you yourself will need help. Today, I want to share a story that will definitely not leave you indifferent. Watch to the end. It'll be interesting. This story happened in one of the countries in Latin America. I don't know if it's true, but it doesn't matter. It's very vital, and it teaches a lot. Andre, a 17-year-old boy, worked part-time at a very expensive restaurant in the vicinity of the city in which he lives. At his young age, he was left with a little sister and a sick mother in charge. In the afternoon, he went to school, and in the evening, he folded his satchel and went to work. The money he earned there was barely enough for a living. But despite this, the guy was one of the most friendly waiters. He was always friendly to customers and played with children coming to the restaurant. One day, while Andre was fulfilling his daily duties and carrying orders from one part of the restaurant to another, the door opened and an elderly woman entered. Gray hair was covered with a scarf, and the clothes were torn in several places and were a little dirty. The woman leaned on the chair closest to the exit, trying to catch her breath. In the hall, a disgruntled haunting began. Visitors began to discuss the woman, and displeased squint at her. She could not move from embarrassment. Finally, she, trembling and stumbling, got to the nearest table. She said in a low voice, "Sorry, young people. I didn't want to bother you, but today I didn't eat anything. If you could..." Before she could explain her situation, a bald man dressed in a suit appeared nearby. He grabbed her by the shoulder and pushed her out the door. She stumbled 2 times, but the angry man did not care older woman anymore. She couldn't stand on trembling legs and knelt down on the cold road, looking through the glass doors of the restaurant. How warm it was, and how many people came there to warm themselves with a cup of coffee. Gathering strength, she got up and headed to the alley, where there was just a black entrance to the restaurant. At this time, the manager of the restaurant, the same man who several minutes ago drove the poor woman out of the restaurant, apologized to all the guests of the restaurant and even offered them dessert as an apology. Andre, who was present in the hall during this ugly scene, decided that he should do something for the poor woman. He ran out the back door of the restaurant and found the old woman. He put his hand in his pocket and pulled out the only money he had earned that day. Things were not going well with him, and his expenses were quite high, but at least he had a house to return to and food. So he went up to the woman and put money in her hand. She looked at him and saw the friendly face of a young guy smiling at her. She looked into his eyes and burst into tears. "Thank you," she whispered to him. "It's the kindest act in relation to me in recent years. You're a very noble young man, and one day you'll receive all that you deserve." A week later, Andre's life was still the same. School, help to his sister, and care of his mother. Work. He tried to be the same as always. He maintained good relations with colleagues and smiled at each client. At that moment, the doors of the restaurant opened, and a very elegant woman came in, wearing a wide hat and chic jewelry. She was wearing a black skirt that matched perfectly with a white jacket. The woman clearly possessed not only money, but also great taste. She sat down at the best table in the restaurant, and soon the manager himself approached her. He did not know what else to do to please the important client. He called Andre and ordered to immediately execute any order of the guest. Then the manager smiled at the woman and respectfully handed her a menu. She noticed how a man was trying to flatter her and smiled back. The manager told her about the best dishes of the restaurant and offered to bring her order personally. The woman replied, "Sorry, but I would not want to be served by such a superficial person like you." The manager looked at her resentfully and asked why she said so. An elderly woman who was looking at the menu at the moment looked up at the man and began to explain her behavior. "A few days ago, I was very hungry and confused. I became a victim of a robbery, so I went to one of my restaurants in search of help, wanting to stay in a warm place until they come for me. It was at that moment that I realized that the people who work for me do not feel a bit of sympathy for those in need. The manager immediately remembered that day and how rude he was with the woman. He was extremely embarrassed, asked for forgiveness, to which she replied, "Don't worry, I accept your apologies, but you must understand that I can no longer have such a heartless person in my business." Then the woman fell silent for a second and turned to Antonio, smiled at him and said, "People like this guy that I need in my business." "What's your name?" "My name's Andre," he answered. "So Andre will be the new manager of my restaurant chain. I'm very grateful to him for how kind he was with me that evening," the woman said. The guy, still not believing what was happening, embraced the woman, thanked her for her kindness. When he was left alone, he burst into tears, thinking that now with a new job, he'd be able to pay for his mother's treatment and provide his Natalie with everything possible. After training for a new position, the guy became a very effective and friendly manager. He organized the work of the staff well and set the rules to help those in need. This was reflected in the business. Restaurants were visited by more and more people in general. Andre was in his place and was able to provide his family with everything necessary because he had acted conscientiously and helped a needy person. Thanks for watching. Please like and share the video in social networks. We'll be right back to you as fast as we can.